These academics got together and they lobbied government. They had the RESP approved as a registered educational savings plan by the government, and Michael Wilson's budget, I think of 1970, actually cemented that, such that people could use this, what's loosely called a tax shelter, to secrete money for their children's post-secondary education.
Very good. Now, the foundation, what is the philosophy behind it? Okay, it's to get young people that aren't as well off to be able to go to school, their children. Is that the main thing behind it, or what do you feel?
Yes and no, because I don't think we don't make value judgments on anyone's particular income level or whatever, but it is an affordable RESP such that people of moderate and low incomes can participate even at a moderate level. But that's not to say that more middle class and higher income people can't take advantage of what the government has given us by
Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
The Adopt a Dog Show. I'm Brenda Knowles, Vice President of the Dogs' Rights Society. Lately we have been constantly encountered with people asking us, why do you call yourselves Dogs' Rights? When this organization first began, we came to a shocking realization that dogs do not have any rights according to the law. At the same token, they are disposed of or misused of in a harsh, cruel, and cold way. So we speak on behalf of the dog while we are constantly trying to change bylaws and dog control contracts to give the dogs some rights. So as you can see, Dogs' Rights is very fitting to our organization. Also lately, our credibility has been questioned. How can anyone question an organization that has 10 vets, a whole law firm, a large membership, and volunteers that work 7 days a week to find homes for dogs? Some people are misinformed about the organization also, saying we have a no-kill policy. This, however, is not true. We do believe if a dog has to go down, it should go down by the hands of a qualified veterinarian. I would like to welcome our host, Eunice Rooney, and who will be interviewing Corporal Greg McGrath from the RCMP and his canine friend Chico, and Dr. Woodbury from the Woodbury Animal Hospital in Halifax. And now we go over to Eunice and our first guest, Corporal Greg McGrath.
Welcome to the show, Greg.
Thank you.
Good. How long have you worked with the RCMP?
For the last 20 years.
How long have you been working with dogs?
Approximately 17 years.
How old is Chico?
Chico's 3.5 years old.
Now, when will Chico go into retirement?
The RCMP, they retire their dogs at approximately 9 years of age.
Why at 9?
Well, they find that between their health and lack of interest, it's a good time of year to put them down or give them away or whatever they're going to do with them.
You don't sell them, and you usually would give them away?
We give them away, yes.
Yes. Okay, why are shepherds normally chosen for the RCMP dogs?
Well, over the years, the RCMP have found that the German Shepherd is a good all-round breed for police work. Due to their coat, they're good for the winter, going through the heavy bush, this type of thing.
Wasn't there a time that Doberman was used with the RCMP?
They've tried Dobermans, but like I say, with their light coats, they're more apt to get hurt going through the woods and not very conducive for the cold winters.
Why are male dogs usually used as police dogs?
Well, I think that the majority of the dog handlers just prefer a male because of the size. There just seems to be lots of males that are donated to the force.
Oh, I see. Okay, why do you usually videotape you and your dog in training? I remember when we were talking about this, and I was quite surprised to hear that.
Well, I find it's a good aid to watch yourself and make any corrections you need to do. Other than a trainer suggesting trying something, you could actually watch yourself and make your own corrections.
Mm-hmm. So you see what mistakes you've made, and then you can better them.
That's right, yes.
Okay. What types of training does Chico have to go through?
Well, the course is 3 months long, and it's held at Innisfil, Alberta. Initially, the dog is trained for the agility, obedience, tracking, searching, and attack work. The profiles the dogs are trained to do.
Okay. When did you and your dog first bond?
I got Chico when he was 11 months old, and the way the bonding process started is that we go for a long walk out in Innisfil, Alberta. The walk is probably 10 miles long, and it takes a good day's walk to do the 10 miles, and in that period of time, the dog and you start developing the bond, and after that point, it's just continuous.
Very interesting. So do you have any interesting cases that you would like to share with us about what's happened with you and your dog?
There was an interesting case in northern Alberta where we were stationed at one time, where a visitor from Texas lost his eyeglasses in a field, and they called the RCMP, and we went down with the dog and were able to search this field, which is approximately 30 acres, and found this gentleman's eyeglasses. And he was very happy regarding that because he wouldn't have been able to drive back to Texas without his glasses, so he's pretty thankful that we found them.
He's just pretty happy to be able to see, right?
Yes.
Yeah, very good. So has your dog received any injuries during his work as a police dog?
Just your basic cut pads,
Yeah.
no actual physical injuries at all.
Yeah. Have you received any injuries during the time that you've worked with the dog? Say, trying to keep up with the dog?
The only thing I received was a twisted ankle,
Yeah.
and just minor little ailments like that goes with the job.
So nothing too serious then?
No.
Okay. Where does your dog stay? What type of housing do you have for the dog?
Well, he stays at my residence, and the RCMP, they supply a 6x12 run and a double insulated house, dog house for him.
Uh-huh.
And it's very warm in the winter, and gets the best of treatment at home.
Yeah, and he has 2 rooms, doesn't he, in his
Yes,
dog
he
house?
has a veranda, an open porch area, and then a bedroom area.
Lucky dog, a lot luckier than some people.
Yeah, I'm probably afraid so.
Do you ever use cruelty in training?
No, I haven't noticed that in any of our training. Probably because what we like to see is a dog that's willing to work and wants to work. And the dog's natural propensity is to work, so we just try and utilize that into our training mode and encourage the dog to perform what we want the dog to do and encourage him. And through lots of praise, most of our dogs perform that way, under lots of praise.
I don't think that any dog really performs well when cruelty is involved, because I think they get pain mixed up with what they're supposed to do.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, so what type of demands does Chico put on you?
The only thing you have to be careful for is to assure that you have lots of patience with him. Like the dog has a tendency to go to his limit, how far he can go, and you have to make sure you're patient and consistent with your training and working the dog in an actual situation.
Do you and Chico exercise together on a daily basis?
Daily, yes. The dog is groomed and looked after, and as far as training goes, we maintain our level of our standard that the RCMP put out, and we maintain that throughout the year. On a daily basis, yeah.
Do you actually go walking with the dog, though? Do you do that and send the dog through loops and this type of thing?
Well, as much as we can. You know, when we're not working actual calls, the dog is exercised daily.
Okay. Has Chico been taught to hold or to bite?
Our police dogs are trained to bite.
They're trained to
And
bite.
that's attacking the arm, and from training, that's what they're able to do, is bite the arm, and that's usually of a fleeing criminal.
Okay. Has Chico ever sampled drugs in order to know how to sniff drugs out?
Well, the way we train our dogs to sniff drugs isn't by giving the dog the sample. It's just a game with the dog. It's just fun. We start with marijuana and we put it in a bag or a container where he can't get at it, and it's just a retrieving article for the dog. So he associates the article to the command we use, and he finds his reward, which is, in this case, would be the marijuana.
So he never has any involvement actually with the actual drug?
No.
No. Okay. Does he ever require any extra medical attention in comparison to other dogs?
Well, the RCMP policy is that the police dogs have an extensive medical once a year, and it's a very thorough medical, and like I say, once a year he goes in for it. In the meantime, if anything crops up, an injury or so forth, we take him right to the vet.
Good. I often wonder, do they have to have a special diet?
Well, what we feed with Chico, he's on Iams chunks, which I don't think is a special diet, and it's available to everybody.
Yeah, well, Iams is an extremely good dog food anyhow.
Yes, Chico seems to be working out pretty well on it.
Oh, yes, I know. Iams, they also donate to our organization, so we have a special feeling towards them, and their food is really great and well balanced, we find. The dogs do really well on it.
That's great.
Is there any real difference between a police dog in comparison to another dog?
Well, just for shepherds, we basically look for a dog that has good retrieval instinct within the German Shepherd breed. And the dog has to have lots of get up and go. He wants to work for you. He wants to be out there looking for the, say, a retrieving dumbbell. He'll spend all day looking for it. And that's what we would like to see in a dog, good retrieval instinct.
I think this is the case with Chico. He's not at all happy just being here on the stage.
Well,
he really is interested in everything that's going on round about him, and he wants to get involved.
yes, no, I think with that, I think that makes him a good police dog. He just...
Yeah, he has all the signs, the right
That's right.
signs. Actually, I have one at home that's a good police dog then, too, if he had the proper training. Okay. Do you feel that patience and consistency is very important in training a dog?
That's what I think, and what we try and emphasize is more praise than negative reward. In other words, if the dog is doing something right, then you over-exaggerate the good boy, the proper behavior you want from the dog. And instead of emphasizing a negative thing, you emphasize the positive thing.
Yeah, you really get into it.
Yes.
Yes, that's what we do too when we're training. We're training dogs in any way, like just simple house training or whatever. We really over-exaggerate the good boy.
That's right.
Yeah, and so he really responds well to praise then.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the highlight of his day then.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, how about discipline? Do you have to exercise much discipline with him?
Well, just more verbal, and it's very light. And what you try and do is encourage him to do something positive so he can revert back to a positive reinforcement instead of emphasizing the negative again.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you very much for being on the show today. And I hope that Chico has many years yet with you, many good years. And thanks again.
Well, thank you for having us.
Okay.
Our first dog today is Rags. Rags, a little female spayed, part poodle and terrier. And Rags needs her needles. She's due in September, October, so she's just due. She's got long, black, wavy hair, as you can see, and just a little bit of gray in here. It's not premature gray. I think maybe she's been worried about something. She's all house trained, and she likes playing with kids, and she loves to have a walk. She's chews on rawhide chewies. She's trained to chew on rawhide chewies. And she's not really trained per se. She's obviously a very happy little thing and enjoys her existence. She digs in the yard a little bit, and she chews occasional things like wooden shoes that's left out. It's like living with a small child. You sort of have to provide the safe living area for them and expect maybe sometimes they get in a little mischief, but if you provide a proper safe area for them, then it's not too bad. The owners are moving, and this is the reason they can't keep this little dog anymore. So if you're interested in Rags, she's 1.5 years old, and she's been spayed, and she just needs her needles. And she's obviously a really friendly little thing. She likes the other dogs that are around here today, and she likes my little cohort here, Stephen. So if you're interested in her, just phone the number that's flashed on the screen, and her name is Rags. Our next dog is Pharaoh. Pharaoh was found wandering in the Woodlawn area October 9th, and his nature and disposition indicated for the people that have been housing him all this time that he's been a family pet. He's become lost, and he was given a temporary home. This dog has got a great coat. It's just really lovely and thick and very soft, so he's been well maintained before and obviously since he's been in this new home. They've been trying to find a new home for him. They've advertised and things like that, so they've been anticipating that the former owners would have phoned up and found him, but so far they've had no luck at all. All efforts to locate his former owner have failed, and they now require a permanent home for this lovely little dog, and a caring home. He's been with a family that's got 2 young children, and they all get along beautifully. The little kids aren't overly impressed with having to find a new home for him, but he obviously gets along great with little children, so there shouldn't be a problem. He deserves a permanent and caring home, and he's been checked out by a veterinarian, given his shots, and it's been judged to be about 8 to 10 months old. He's in excellent health, and this dog will make a loving pet for some family who wants to be his guardian and who is willing to return his love. Positive qualities are very obvious. He's friendly and affectionate. He's housebroken. He's used to being taken out for an evening walk, and he's caught short, and he's been caught short a few times a night, but I mean, he's a young dog, and you have to be prepared for 1 or 2 little mistakes. That doesn't mean the animal isn't housebroken. It just means that everything makes mistakes every once in a while. He loves to be petted, and he loves to be around people. He's pleasant with other animals. He's been around all their dogs around here and seems to be perfectly happy either playing or just ignoring the fact. He's intelligent, he's trainable, and he is very attractive. Loves to be taken for walks, does not mind being tied outside for short periods of time. We don't recommend having a dog tied out for long periods of time, but in all reality, sometimes you have to tie him out for short periods, and he doesn't seem to be overly concerned with it. Other considerations is he still is a bit of a puppy and likes to play, and he's not yet learned to heel, but is showing receptiveness to being trained. His coat will need to be brushed, and face fur will need trimming occasionally. And on October 10th, he was given his distemper, hepatitis, parainfluenza, canine parvo, and all the other shots here, and he will need to be taken for boosters and rabies in about a month. He is not yet neutered. A veterinarian has suggested waiting for 1 or 2 months. The current guardians want Pharaoh to be given only to individuals who love and respect animals and who really want a dog for a pet, and that's a great consideration, and we agree with it wholeheartedly. This is obviously a very sweet little dog, a very loving little thing. Like all our other dogs, we want to make sure that they go to the perfect home. So if you're interested in a little dog like this, he's got a nice coat and sweet little face, give us a grin, and his name is Pharaoh, so just call up the number that's flashed on the screen and ask for Pharaoh. This is Clancy. Hi, Clancy. Clancy's gorgeous. Clancy's got little white toes. Clancy is a 15-month female-old lab shepherd mix, and she's been spayed. She's had all her shots, and she just needs her boosters. Clancy has been cage trained, so I got she's used to living in a little portable kennel when she has to go someplace. And a lot of dogs like that. It gives them sort of a feeling of their own private little den, a sense of security. As long as it's introduced the fact that it's a pleasant place, they're not put in there for reprimanding, they're put in there only for their own protection and for traveling. And it's a good idea just to leave the cage open and let them go in and out and have their toy in there and make it a very friendly place for them, and that's a great way to get the dog introduced. She doesn't chew, and she's totally housebroken. She responds to most common commands. She's pretty excited today. We've got ducks out the back. We've got cats and dogs all over the place. But she was sitting for the man that has her before, so she is trained. Clancy prefers to lie down in her place when not playing with the family. She remains in her cage at night, and when unable to accompany her family on outings. So she's used to being in this little kennel. It's a good idea. She will retrieve things thrown on land and in water. Her habits and temperament, Clancy loves all people, especially children. She's got 2 little kids over here, and it's very obvious she's very gentle around these little kids, and she really, really likes them. She's very gentle with others, with owner's 10-month-old son, and Clancy loves walks and swimming and runs and licking Steve's face. She's well behaved in motor vehicles. She's got just a couple of dislikes. She's nervous around vacuum cleaners and garden hoses. A lot of dogs are nervous around such items, especially the vacuum cleaners, for obvious reasons. Clancy does not eat table scraps or people food, so she's 100% dog. She likes her dog food and no fooling around. She does not stay healthy eating poor quality dog food. None of them do, and I'm glad the man brought that up because it's very important that people realize the fact that what goes in comes out. We are what we eat, and the same thing applies for a dog and a cat and everything else. If you feed them well, they're going to look good and they're going to feel good. This one obviously feels good. So if you're interested, this is Clancy. Clancy is a female, spayed, and 15-month-old shepherd lab cross, and she's a real little sweetie. Come here now, Clance. Say hi to the camera and kiss me again. Our next little dog up is Bruno. Bruno is not the one in pink. Bruno is the one over here. This is Bruno's owner. Bruno's owner has decided that she and her sister and her mom and dad haven't got enough time lately to dedicate. They don't feel it's right for the little dog because the parents are working and the little kids are going off to daycare now, and they feel that the dog isn't getting enough attention. He's home alone a lot, so they really want Bruno to find another home. They love the dog, but they feel it's only fair to the dog that he goes to some place where they're going to have a bit more time and energy to spend on the dog. Bruno's 16 weeks old, part Spaniel and part Beagle. Bruno is a healthy little tyke. You can see the Beagle in his face. He's a real little sweetheart. He's house trained, he's had his first needles, and he's dewormed. He needs the boosters. Hi, gorgeous. He likes the camera. He's got an intelligent little face here. He listens well and would be easy to train. Beagles are very easy to train. They're a very intelligent dog, and a little bit of time and energy, they're very receptive to training. He doesn't like staying out at night. I don't blame you. It's too cold at this time of year, and he hasn't got the right kind of coat for this dog to be out all night now. It's too cold. He's very good and pleasant with kids, and I mean, that's obvious. There's no problem there. He likes to run a lot. Again, that's Beagle in him, but that's no reason why you couldn't do a little schooling. Reason for giving him up, like I said, there's nobody home during the day. They had a different arrangement before, but things have changed, and now they feel that the dog isn't getting the attention that it deserves. It's obviously a very happy and loving little dog, and he likes his little girl, and he likes Steve okay too, but he needs a new home where they're going to be able to spend a little extra time and energy with him. So if you're interested in giving Bruno a good home, here's your guy, and we lost our girl. Our next little dog is Nikki. We had Nikki on the last show, and the people that have her, it's not really working out too well. They live in a mobile, and they feel it's not really kind to the dog. There's not enough room for her there. She's an energetic little thing. She's lots of activity around here today, and there's lots of other dogs around, and she likes to call out. I guess she seems to get along fine with other dogs. She hasn't had any problem here at all. We're trying to figure out the breeding of her. Somebody said Shepherd Collie. I've got to say, I think there's probably some sort of Malamute or Husky of some sort in this little dog. She's 11 months old. She's been spayed. She may even have a little golden lab. It's hard to say. She's had all her needles. As you can see, she's got blonde and a short coat. This is not an outside dog, okay? Even if she does have a little husky in her, she is not a dog that's to live outside, okay? If she had a proper insulated raised dog house and had to spend a few hours during the day in a great big and fenced area so that she could run around and get lots of exercise, okay, but not to be put outside and left out there, okay? She's fine with kids, it seems to be from the previous owners, and she's just got a little excitable temperament, but she is housebroken, and she's very intense. She's really paying attention to what's going on here, and she obviously, I think she's a little upset that she's gone from pillar to post. We'd like to see her go to a new home, and I'd like to see her get adopted and not adopted again, if at all possible. She may take a little extra energy if she's got a little husky in her, she may take a little extra energy for some training. If you've got some time and dedication and are willing to put a little extra energy into this dog, she's got a little extra energy to give out. But let's find her the right home this time and get her adopted once for the next 15 years of her life, okay? So this is Nikki. Nikki's the singer. Sing for me, Nikki. Ooh, yes, okay. This is Nikki, and she's looking for a good home, so just phone the number on the screen. Our next little dog is Shadow. Shadow is a Blue Merle Sheltie, purebred little dog. Nice, sweetheart. And what a little face. Look at that face. What a sweetie pie. Shadow's 7-year-old, male and neutered, and the shots are due now. He likes lots of attention, and he likes to go for walks. His dislikes are vets, loud noises like buses and big trucks, and he's not really recommended for small children. He's an older little puppy, not too old, sort of middle-aged, but he doesn't seem to be overly fond of young children. And I guess he doesn't like microwave ovens. I don't know whether he can't figure out how to work the dials or whatever, but he doesn't like microwave ovens. And he gets nervous in crowds. He's been pretty good here today, but then our crowd is starting to dwindle a bit. So his good traits are he's gentle and quiet and will not leave his property. He likes most female dogs, and he's okay with some other male dogs if they're young and he can put them in his place, but he likes to show who's boss. Maybe he's got a short person complex. He doesn't like to get bossed around by big dogs. He has been totally obedience trained in the past. He may need a little brushing up because it's been a while, but he's had the whole regalia, so he knows his stuff. His history was that he was kept in a kennel for 4 years before the owner that has him here now. This could be a little bit of why he's a little nervous of certain things that go on. He was not housebroken when he got him, so he had to put a lot of work into him, but there we go back to our original thought is you can't teach an old dog new tricks isn't exactly applicable, is it? Because he did teach the old dog, or older dog, some new tricks. He couldn't go up and down stairs then, and he did not know how to play. He's changed a lot. He's had a good little existence here. He's just a tad on the plump side, so I think maybe a little bit more up and down the stairs he might be able to lose a little weight. But it would be a lot healthier for a dog, especially this age. It's difficult to put a dog on a diet, but it really is a lot more strain on their heart and lungs if they're overweight. So more short walks and little cut back on their food, just a little bit more roughage maybe. And there are low-calorie foods for senior dogs and things that this would be advisable for this little dog. The man that has him now has to move into a new apartment due to health reasons, and he can't take his dog. I'm sorry to say we hear that a lot. And it's too bad that more apartment buildings didn't recognize the fact that a little dog like this certainly isn't any more trouble than some kids running around. But they don't feel that way yet. Maybe they'll have a change of heart somewhere down the line. So because of this man has to be separated from his dog, so we want to find a really special home for this little dog. Dog's already had a rough 4 years, and now the last 3 years have been very happy and abundant, and he needs to go to the proper home. So if anybody's interested, purebred little dog here looking for a super good home, his name is Shadow. And just phone us up and ask for Shadow. This is Dusty. Dusty's a handsome devil, I must say. He's part lab. He's 2 years old. He seems kind of concerned about all that's going on here today. He's a real little sweetie, aren't you? Are you worried about something? He's 2 years old and 5 months, and he's very good with children. The man that has him has subjected him to some kids, and everything seems to be fine. He is a real little mush, I guess. He loves a lot of attention. I thought he was going to climb up my lap for this a minute ago. He's had all his shots, and he's housebroken, and he comes when he's called, and he minds very well. Are you a good trained little puppy dog? Yeah. He loves dry dog food, and he gets in the garbage if left out. I have a 12-year-old dog that has for 12 years gotten in the garbage. If I forget and leave it out, you know, it happens. We have to be prepared for certain little flaws in one's personality. He's used to being tied. He doesn't object to it. He will sit, he lays, and he shakes his paw. Doesn't mind cats. He's got one next door, and he likes to play with it, so that's a good idea. Get a little cat for you to play with. And he likes to be inside where it's warm, don't we all? Again, now this dog, he doesn't have the kind of coat to stay outside. There's only a few animals, a few breeds of dogs that are really meant to, designed to live outside, and we don't get too many of them around here. This little guy looks like he'd like to be curled up by the wood stove, probably just about now, because it's getting kind of frosty out here. So this is Dusty, 2.5-year-old male dog, great with cats and kids and other dogs. He could stand to put a little bit of weight on this little guy and a little regular grooming, brush him up and give him a little buff and shine, and you have a real handsome looking rogue on your hands. So this is Dusty. Our next little dog is Buddy. Buddy's got beautiful, beautiful dark brown eyes. Buddy is 4-month-old male cocker crossed with a golden lab, and he's a real little doll, this one here. Show that gorgeous face. Look at that face. What a face. Not mine. He's all housebroken, he loves kids, and he's very playful. He seems like a pretty calm little guy, but I guess when he wants to get out and start playing, he's got lots of juice. He's good with cats and dogs. Well, that's really handy, because then he can go to a place that's already got a dog for some company for both of them. He's had all his shots, and the people that have him now are afraid to say that they've come into a circumstance that they're just a bit too busy to keep him anymore. It's kind of a heartbreak. Wanted to keep him and give him a good home, but they've gotten too busy and they feel it's not fair. They can't dedicate the proper time that he deserves. I'd rather see people admit that and find a good home for the dog rather than just sort of let the animal suffice and live a life of bare existence. Let's give the dogs what they deserve. I've said it before and I'll say it again. What goes around comes around. You give a little affection to a dog and you're going to get it back in threefold. It's nice to see people realize the fact that if they can't keep the dog and give it what it needs, then let's find it a new home and the right home. So I praise people that have got that foresight. So if you're interested in Buddy, Buddy has an extremely beautiful face and very intelligent. You should never have any problems with training a dog like this Cocker Spaniel and Lab. You can see the Lab in this dog's temperament. It's just sort of taking everything as it comes, and there's no big problem. So Buddy's the guy. He's 4 months old, male Cocker Lab, and if you're interested, just phone the number that's flashed on the screen. Say hi, Buddy. All right, the next little dog we've got here, Steve and I have decided we're going to call it Needle Nose. Needle Nose hasn't got a name. It's been living in a kennel situation for the last 2 months. It had been hit by a car and was inspected by a vet, but no damage was done, and the people that brought it in couldn't do anything with it. So it has been, since then, confined to a small cage in a kennel situation, like I said, for the last 2 months. You can see a little bit of dry scurf. I had a dog that I foster home that had the same thing, and this is basically from lack of free exercise and brushing, and maybe it's getting a little bit too much milk in its diet. That's a really easy condition to control. It takes a matter of days, and it's all under control. As you can see, this guy is real glad to be out of the cage, okay? This is, pardon me, this girl, excuse me. This is a female, 6-month-old, not spayed. She's too young for that. Black lab cross with something, and she's going to be a medium-sized dog. Now, when you consider that she's probably just around half her growing age, but she hasn't got a real big knuckle here, so she's not going to be a huge dog. She's very affectionate, and it's obvious she's very playful. She's good with kids, and she's had distemper, parvo, and rabies needles, so her shots are all up to date. And when she gets old enough, in another couple of months, she'll be ready to be spayed. She eats canned and dry food combined, and she's pretty house-trained, even considering she's been living in a kennel. She doesn't make any mistakes in the kennel, and she waits to go out for walks. She hasn't got a name right now, except for Needle Nose, which I think is just fine and dandy. She's cute, and she loves people. So this is our little animal that's been living in a cage. She's safe in a cage right now. The people that have got her are willing to keep her. Actually, I think we have it lined up that one of our foster moms is going to take her for a while. So she's going to have a little bit more freedom and learn to run, but she needs to go in and have her own family. She's getting to the age now that she's had enough of this foolishness, and she wants to have her own Steve to chew on. So if you want to give a good home to this little Needle Nose, you phone up and ask for Needle Nose. Say hi to the camera. Come here, come say hi. Yeah. She's a cutie. This little dog is a lost dog. I found this dog. We're going to call her Portobello, little female dog. I found her running on Portobello Road, and she's obviously somebody's pet. She's got a flea collar and another little collar, and she's a real happy little thing, and she didn't mind going for a ride in my car. She's a little cutie, and she's got great floppy ears. If this dog is your dog, phone the number that's flashed on the television screen. We're calling her Portobello because that's where I found her. If this is your dog, and you want her back, she obviously has been loved by somebody, you give us a call and we've got her, okay? We have another dog named Corky that couldn't come on the show today. The people couldn't get the dog down, so I'm just going to give you a little literature on the dog, and then you can phone the number that's flashed on the screen of this dog if you need to get some more information. It's part terrier, and it's medium-sized, black curly hair. It's a year-old, male, and it hasn't been neutered and hasn't had any shots. It's got a real cute little face, and it's fine with other dogs. The lady has other dogs, and she has cats as well, so it's fine with those. It's not the least bit aggressive. It likes to chase cats that run, but it's only because it wants to play, so it's not a problem at all. It plays well with the lady's 10-year-old child, so there doesn't seem to be any problem with kids either. And it's outside sometimes. She has a big fenced yard, or actually a small fenced yard, and it's in there, and the only time it ever barks is when it wants in. So it's not a problem barker or anything like that. The reason that she's giving up is that she lives in a housing complex that she's not allowed to have 2 dogs, and she already had a dog, and she took this one in out of the goodness of her heart, but she's come to grips with reality and decided that she couldn't provide the proper setting for the dog, so now she wants another home. She's in a bit of a hurry because she is breaking a rule, so we have to find a home for this dog fairly quickly. So it's a year-old, part terrier, long curly hair, and its name is Corky. She's done some training with it. It's mostly housebroken. It's kept outside a lot of the time, so it's kind of hard to define. It sits. It's been walked on a leash, no problem walking on a leash. Comes when it's called. If it's off a leash or it gets away, it comes right back when it's called. And it's got a busy little attitude like a typical terrier. So if you're interested in a terrier type of attitude, okay, they are a bit more energetic than some dogs. If you are willing to put up with a bit more energy, then give us a call on this little dog Corky, and then we can try to get some photographs or line up an appointment to meet the dog and see if we can't work on an adoption. So that's Corky. We have a contract that people, when you adopt a dog from us, we have a legal and binding contract that people read, understand, and sign. We brought up about 6 months ago on one of our other shows, we had a man on that read the whole contract to drive the point home that this is in fact a legal binding contract. It was written up with us and lawyers. It is in fact legitimate, okay? I'm going to just bring up a few points. I'm not going to read the whole contract to you, but I will bring up a few points. There's a lot of points to bring up, quite frankly. I'll read bits and pieces of the contract. The adopted person agrees to allow a representative society to visit to see how the dog is settling in, and agrees to allow the society to reclaim the dog as circumstances are such that the society feels it necessary. That's our follow-up program. The adoptive person agrees to pay all veterinary costs if required, including the cost of vaccination prior to adopting the dog. The adoptive person agrees to have this dog licensed with proper authorities as soon as possible upon adopting the dog. The adoptive person agrees to provide this dog with a happy, and I stress happy, home, including the following: to provide adequate and nourishing food, to provide clean drinking water at all times, to provide regular daily exercise, very important, to provide veterinary care, also extremely important, to provide clean, safe, comfortable housing within the home, okay, not to be tied out and left out. Some periods of time are acceptable, but not all the time. To provide daily companionship and affection. This is something that should go without saying, but it doesn't, and this is a really important point. They are a pack animal, they're a companion animal, they can't be just emotionally abandoned. To provide shade from sun on hot days and shelter from the elements at all times, and not to leave this dog in a vehicle unattended where it could die of heat prostration, nor leave this dog tied outdoors unattended. And to provide a collar which is not too tight and have a dog tag engraved with your phone number on it. The adoptive person agrees to board this dog in a reputable kennel when on vacation, or to arrange other suitable care when away from this dog. Now, this is a really important point. The adoptive person agrees to retain this dog in their possession for a minimum of a period of 6 weeks. If after this time you no longer want this dog, then the society will gladly discuss the situation with you in regards to readoption. It will be up to the discretion of the society whether the dog will be removed by our organization. We are willing to we want to find the dog, if it doesn't work out, to find the dog a new home that we work with you to find. We don't want the dog, we adopt a dog to you, we don't want you giving the dog away, okay? We want it back to readopt it, so we can still do our follow-up program, and then the next people can sign the contract. The adoptive person agrees to the spaying and neutering of this dog within 6 weeks of adoption, unless extenuating circumstances as determined by a reputable veterinarian forbid it. In other words, if it's too young, or it's really, really old, or any health reasons forbid it. And here's this other point. The adoptive person agrees not to give away, sell, or otherwise dispose of this dog without permission of a representative of the society, who can be reached at 462-2729. It's really important, and we mean this. We are serious about this. The adoptive person agrees not to hold the society responsible for any loss, damage, or injury whatsoever which may be caused by this dog, nor to hold responsible, any dog, pound, or authority from which this dog originated, okay? This is a legal and binding contract. It's been written up by lawyers with our group. It is a legal contract. If it's been read and understood and signed before the people take the dog, so there's no excuse not to know what's in this. If during a follow-up we find, one of our representatives find that things are not being lived up to, then we will refresh people's memory, bring to light a certain point in the contract, and then we will go back, and if, again, the situation hasn't been corrected, then we are in the position and we will take the dog back and readopt it, okay? We haven't to date had to push this legally, the fact that if the contract's broken, then you are in fact doing breach of contract. We are prepared in the future that if the contract is broken in any way, we are prepared to take legal action if it is necessary. All right, I don't want to sound too strong on this, but it's very important. Some people are taking this lightly. It's not something to be taken lightly. It's serious. These are dogs' lives at stake and their living conditions, and we mean business. When we adopt a dog to a good home, we want it that way, and we mean business, and we intend to follow up on our intentions. So thanks very much for reading the contract and obeying the rules and abiding and providing your dog with an excellent home. Thanks. The history of this dog is pretty sad. It was obviously terribly abused and neglected. It's petrified of people. He's coming around now a bit because he's been with a foster home for the last 3 weeks and had a lot of TLC. It had been living in a kennel situation where it was living on a wire mesh ground. Its feet were terribly infected and raw, had a fever, matted coat. No signs of any flea infestation, which makes us think that it was living in a quarry or gravel situation where it didn't have a lot of open soil and grass. But the dog was so intimidated, if you even came near this little thing, no sign of aggression whatsoever. What this dog would do would be to find the first available hole or anything to crawl under into and just do an ostrich effect, try to stick its face out under something and get away from any kind of humanity. I had to go and take this dog out of this kennel, and he was backed into the back corner, and whenever this animal get near people at all, it would stop being able to walk. You'd have to pick this dog up physically and carry it from one place to the other. But no signs of aggression, even with being that scared and that intimidated and that obviously badly abused in the past. The Dog has been living for the last 3 weeks with the foster home with another dog in there, and he's really coming out of his shell quite nicely. He's still terrified of any kind of noise and strange people, but he is coming along quite nicely, and with the proper home, he probably, without any problem at all, is going to be an excellent dog. He's got, even with the past this dog has got, he's still willing to trust and love. When I spent a few minutes with this dog, he started leaning up against me and hugging. He's starting to follow the lady around that has him fostering now. He obviously wants to try to love somebody and have it returned, but he's had one heck of a bad start. We're stressing here, and I don't want anybody to get confused here. We do not want people, thanks very much for your concern, but we don't want people phoning in with sympathy calls or just asking questions about the dogs and just information on things like that. What we're looking for, this dog is not going until we get the absolute perfect home. This has to be a home where somebody is going to be around at all times with this animal. This animal is not to be left alone at any time, not to be thrown out in the yard and expect it to stay there. If it goes out in the yard, it's going to try to run away or find a hole and hide, even at this stage. So what we're looking for is a home, no children, somebody home all the time, either a retired couple that is used to dogs and has got lots of time and energy to dedicate to this situation. This dog needs more love and attention and affection than you could possibly even imagine. We're looking for very special people here. If you haven't got the time and energy, thank you for your concern for the dog. We understand your concern, but this is not what we're looking for. We need the perfect people to provide the perfect home. Lots of affection, lots of attention, no harsh words, nice, calm, safe, easygoing training with this dog. This dog can come around, but it's going to need the proper people. So we haven't, the animal hasn't been neutered or anything like that. He's under, right now, he's on antibiotics for the various infections in his feet. He hasn't had his inoculations because you can't do that when the animal's running in a fever and when he is on antibiotics. So up till now, he hasn't had standard veterinary care, but he's been under a rehab program. So again, I stress no children, and he needs to be babied, terribly babied. And people that have lots of time to dedicate and are home all the time.
With me today is Dr. Woodbury, and we'd like to welcome you to the show.
Thanks very much for having me, Eunice.
Okay. How long have you been a veterinarian?
I graduated in 1978, so I guess that's about 11 years.
Mm-hmm. Where did you graduate from?
Well, since the University of Prince Edward Island has yet to graduate its first veterinarian, when I was looking to become a veterinarian, and I was a Halifax resident, the closest veterinary college was the University of Guelph, the Ontario Veterinary College at the University of Guelph, in Guelph, Ontario, and so I applied there and was accepted.
And where all have you practiced since you graduated?
In 1978, I joined a small animal practice in Guelph, Ontario, and I practiced there for a year. Mm-hmm. And then I had a yearning to come back to Nova Scotia and do mixed animal practice. And I had an opportunity in Digby to do that, and I enjoyed that very much. Mm-hmm. And then I moved on to Truro, Nova Scotia, and did mixed animal practice there. And in 1981, I think it was, I had an opportunity to start my own small animal practice in Halifax, and I've been doing that since then.
Very interesting. What do you like about large animal practice versus small animal practice?
Well, there's in large animal practice, you see fewer patients per day. Mm-hmm. And so you have an opportunity to collect your thoughts in between cases, mm-hmm. and you have an opportunity to meet people who live a quieter lifestyle, and it's very enjoyable to get out in the fresh air and examine the cows and horses and pigs, etc., mm-hmm. in their environment, and piece together the pieces of the puzzle which may be contributing to the disease situation.
Mm-hmm. So it's altogether a different way of practicing, really.
It is. It's totally different. Totally different lifestyles associated with it. The small animal practice is a higher stress situation because of the volume that you're doing every day.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about some of the wonderful things that dogs do for us that contribute to helping us as human beings. Okay?
Okay.
What about the seeing eye dog?
We see a fair number of those in our practice because it's extremely important to people who have guide dogs that their vision, for example, be excellent and their overall health. We find that people who have visual impairment are extremely conscientious owners. And we do our best to keep those animals nice and healthy.
I always watch them when I see them on the street. I find them really amazing how they just stop when the light turns, and I find them very, very interesting animals.
The people who have the guide dogs deserve a great deal of the credit as well. It's a team effort, and it's surprising how much of the guiding is done by the person who's being guided. But it is, you're right, it is fascinating.
They'd have to be compatible then, the dog and the human. Would be a match, would it?
That's right. Some of these guide dogs these days are Labrador retrievers, and they seem to have taken over somewhat from the German Shepherds, who were very much in vogue a few years ago. Perhaps that has to do with the temperament of the owner and the temperament of the dog.
Another interesting place where dogs are, they're police dogs, and also they work as custom officials and rescue services as well.
We do see some of these dogs coming through, and as you can imagine, the police dogs do get the lacerations that are associated with running through the woods, and so we look after those for them when they happen. I remember one incident early on in my practice where a couple of dogs had fought with one another and had lacerated each other's ears. And those lovely standing up ears were just shredded, and it was an interesting project to suture all that cartilage and skin back together again so that they could have nice ears.
And did they have nice ears again?
Oh yes, in the long run.
Good. Also, I think it's important that we remember the family pet that will save a life in the family or an entire family.
Yes.
Say in case of fire or...
And these dogs don't have to look like heroes either. Many of them are little Yorkshire Terriers.
Exactly.
And in the case of fire, all they have to do is be alarmed by something peculiar happening in the house. And the breed is kind of irrelevant as long as the dog is alert and can make lots of noise. And somebody gets twigged by the noise, then it works very well. The other, burglary, of course, is the other thing. Many people think of their dogs as watchdogs. I have a few dogs that come to my practice who are named Timex or Seiko, and that's because they're watchdogs. And again, I've heard the police sometimes say that it's the little dogs that are alarmed easily and are very, very yappy that intimidate the burglars more than some of the more lovable large types.
Exactly. Okay, what about the dog that gives physical support to someone who's disabled? Say, you know, the dog will, someone can't bend down and pick up the keys, but the dog will do that for them.
Yeah, that's really a wonderful situation where they can be trained to help people out in that way. And another example of that would be the hearing impaired, where they signal people when the doorbell goes off or when the telephone rings or whatever. They can be a useful adjunct.
Another place where dogs are used too, they're herding dogs. They have their place as well. And I find them very interesting. I can mention all kinds of sled dogs and show dogs as well. Do you feel that there's an important place for show dogs?
I certainly do. I think that that the purebred breeds allow people to adopt a puppy that they know is going to turn into a particular size, a particular temperament, a particular look. And while I personally have a mongrel at home and love my mongrel just as much as I would love a purebred dog, they do have a place in our society, and the challenge is for the breeders to do a good job at their job.
Right. We all know that small dogs can be involved in heroic acts, but why is it so often that large dogs are involved in these acts, or they're even picked for these, you know, to be police dogs and dogs of that nature?
Well, I think that many of these large dogs are more suited to the physical requirements that they are asked to do. A short-haired dog, for example, cannot handle the winter temperatures associated with saving people in the snow. Similarly, small dogs tend to lose their body heat very quickly and cannot traverse through the snow as well as some of the large dogs. So many of the large dogs are more suited to some of the classical heroic acts.
For sure. But with the large dog, there comes problems as well. What about the large dog that has the problem with hip dysplasia, for example?
Well, you've hit right on it. It is the large dogs that do have hip dysplasia, and notable breeds that have it are German Shepherds and Newfoundland dogs. I think, again, the breeders have a huge role to play in the prevention of this disease. It is highly heritable, so that if we can detect these puppies early that have the disease, then perhaps they could be adopted out to pet homes as opposed to being used for breeding material again. Veterinarians have a role to play. We can detect these puppies early, perhaps, in some cases by giving a short-acting general anesthetic to a young puppy, and turning the hips in certain ways in order to determine whether there's laxity in the hip joint, or to determine whether there might be a stricture of the pectineus muscle. I know that doesn't mean a great deal to your viewers, but one of the muscles of the inner part of the thigh tends to be very tense in these dogs with hip dysplasia. And so if we can detect either one of those two findings, then it is very consistent that they will go on to have hip dysplasia. Similarly, at about 2 years of age, we can take x-rays under anesthesia of the hips and determine whether there is a shallow joint socket. It's a ball and socket joint in the hip, and so if there is a shallow socket, we can determine that and recommend whether or not the dog should be used for breeding. Again, in this ball and socket hip, there is a ligament which goes from the ball to the socket, and if there is excessive laxity in that, we will see that as a shallow, as a ball that is not sunken very deeply in the socket. And the other aspect of hip dysplasia is the way that the ball of the hip fits. If there's an incongruity there and there's not a round surface, then that is another sign of hip dysplasia. And with time, there are arthritic changes that occur in these joints that are a manifestation, that create manifestations of pain and reluctance to rise and so forth.
Another thing, too, is some of these very special dogs end up by suffering from things that a lot of other dogs would not suffer from. For example, they may get involved in smoke inhalation. They may have a problem with that. What would you do for a dog that got involved in that?
Well, I'll only be able to address that generally, but the smoke is an irritant to the cells in the respiratory system, and they may rupture or they may leak fluid into the respiratory system, and of course the fluid makes it difficult for the animal to breathe. So we'll want to stabilize those cell membranes in the respiratory system by giving cortisone-related drugs. We'll want to treat the dog with antibiotics to prevent infection in the respiratory tract. And oxygen. We'll want to make sure that the animal gets enough oxygen to the brain, since the transport of oxygen will be interfered with by the damage caused by the smoke inhalation. So those are three things off the top of my head that occur to me.
What about if the dog was burned?
Extensive burns can be very demoralizing because they lose so much in the way of protein and fluids through the skin. The skin's a very important organ on the body. Again, infection is a huge thing that we have to address, so we have to bandage these dogs appropriately and apply very broad spectrum antibiotics to the skin topically, and also systemically, to either by injection or by tablets, in order to prevent the skin from getting infected. And you have to be extremely gentle with the skin when it's been damaged in this way, in order that it will regenerate properly.
Is there anything that we could do to help the dog till we got it to the veterinarian?
You want to stop the burning process so that if you can apply cold to the skin, then you can perhaps minimize the amount of burning that is continuing to occur in the skin. That cold would not have to be applied for very long, but just long enough to make sure that the burning stops.
And what about the poor dog that ends up by having to go through freezing water, comes out and ends up with frostbite? What would you do for him?
Well, dogs with hypothermia have to be warmed up gradually, and again, they may be in a shock situation. We'll want to treat them with the various drugs that we have for shock, some very rapid-acting steroids and antibiotics, and the frostbite itself, we don't want the dog to slough toes or ears or things, extremities. So we would want to warm those up gradually without causing too much in the way of swelling, and so that's how we deal with that.
Do some of these parts that have been frostbitten, do they have to be amputated?
Yes, but initially it's very difficult to know where the line of devitalization is going to occur, so that it may be a period of days or weeks before we know what to amputate and where.
So it's a matter of time.
Yeah.
Okay. Why do some of these very precious dogs have to be put down?
Well, I suppose in that dramatic case that you just said, where an animal has extensive burns, if the case is hopeless, there's no point in having the animal suffer for an extended period of time while we try to fix it up. We certainly would want to give the animal every chance, but if there is no chance, then we have to put them down.
Okay, I have some general questions for you now. I've heard a little bit lately in regards to onions, that the onions are affecting the blood of the dog. Have you heard anything about that?
Yes, there have been cases where people, for example, might be using desiccated onions in order to make a pizza. And the animal perhaps gets into a bottle of desiccated onions and can poison itself that way. It causes the red blood cells actually to rupture in some cases, and so.
So
it is very dose related.
Yeah.
Small doses of onions are not harmful to dogs.
So if you're giving your dog some leftovers and you have some onions in there, that's not really a lot to worry about.
Shouldn't be a problem unless it's an extreme case.
Okay. What about diseases that dogs get? Are a lot of their diseases contagious to humans?
Well, yes, there are an awful lot of cases where infectious organisms in animals can be transmitted to humans. Some of them are extremely mild or transient infections and really are not very noteworthy. An example of that would be that ear mites in cats can cause very mild transient skin eruptions on people. And but we don't make a big deal out of that because it's not a big problem. Some of the big problems you know about already. Rabies.
Oh, yes.
Rabies is capable of causing deaths in humans, and so even though rabies is relatively rare in Nova Scotia, most veterinarians offer to vaccinate the animals against rabies to make sure that they have an immunity and that the pets will not be a public health hazard.
Okay, another thing too now, winter's coming, and that I often get concerned about winter because a lot of people leave a lot of dogs outside that are not outdoor dogs. What can we offer? What can we tell people about that?
Well, I think that there are various breeds that are more appropriate to withstand the winter conditions. All breeds have to be introduced to it slowly. And so even if you have a husky, if you keep it indoors all winter long and then in the middle of February you decide that it's time to let the dog stay outside, that's not going to work well for you. So the dog should be out in the fall, and as the weather gets gradually more and more severe, the dog's metabolism will acclimate itself to that problem. The hair coat will become more dense, and the thyroid gland, which is responsible for the metabolic rate, will get geared up so that there's lots of metabolic activity to keep the dog
dog warm. Small dogs have more surface area, and so that they are poorer candidates for leaving outdoors in severe weather. Dogs with light hair coats, like Dobermans, even though a Doberman is a fair-sized dog, in my opinion, they should not be housed outdoors. Even with appropriate shelter, I don't think that it's appropriate to house a Doberman outdoors because they are sensitive to the cold.
Sure, they're just not designed for outdoors for our cold winters anyhow. Anyhow, I'd like to thank you very much for being on our show. I have a lot more questions for you, but it looks like we've run out of time.
Ah, shucks. Thanks for having me.
Okay.
I'd like to give thanks to the following: Eunice Rooney, our Dogs' Rights volunteers, our guests today, Dartmouth Cable, Kathy Hiscock from Ions Dog Food Company, B&R Pet Supplies in Lower Sackville, Mike Harding at BBM Services in Lower Sackville, the Bargain Hunter for putting up for long telephone calls with us and helping to advertise our dogs, and last, Abbott's Printers in Dartmouth for taking the time to create our new business cards, and we'd like to thank you for watching today, and we'll see you next time.
And a good Tuesday evening, everyone. In the news tonight, independent gasoline dealers in this area are ganging up on the Public Utilities Board.
They say the PUB has far too much power in deciding who will be allowed to open new service stations. The dealers say that means consumers are forced to pay higher prices at the pumps than necessary. Martha Cody has this report.
The town of Bridgewater has a cooperative of 900 people. As members, it offers them lower prices on everything from groceries to gardening equipment. The co-op also wants to sell gas at a lower price, but the Public Utilities Board won't grant the co-op permission to operate its own gas bar. Co-op Atlantic says the PUB is no longer protecting consumers from high gas prices, and it needs to be overhauled.
It's a dinosaur, and it needs to be revamped and re-looked at and rethought and reconstituted.
The PUB says it grants licenses on the basis of public interest, convenience, and necessity, as outlined in legislation. Dave Collins is challenging the board on its decisions. Collins is a manager of Wilson's Fuels, an independent Truro company. Like the co-op, he's been unsuccessful in applications for new service stations. He's taken his complaints to Ottawa, and he says officials in charge of fair marketplace competition will intervene on his behalf at his December 7th hearing in Truro.
They are very sympathetic. They've looked at the PUB for a long time and feel that you know, it is such a definite, huge barrier to entry, and that it limits competition so heavily that we've ended up with the classic marketing oligopoly. I mean, they just refuse to compete because there's no incentive to compete.
No PUB spokesman would go on camera, and I was referred to the Attorney General's Department, which governs the PUB. Attorney General Tom McInnes indicated last week he might look into loosening the regulations on the gasoline industry, but even if he did, it wouldn't happen until the spring. The public won't be put off indefinitely.
Hell will freeze over before this issue goes away.
Martha Cody, MITV.
Halifax Ports Police are investigating the theft of a large quantity of liquor from a container pier. The liquor was discovered missing this morning from a container on Pier 36. Its estimated worth is between $100,000 and $200,000. A Ports Police spokesman says some of the liquor has been recovered and the investigation is continuing. The spokesman would neither confirm nor deny if any arrests have been made.
A Halifax man is dead tonight following a 3-vehicle crash near Chester. The incident occurred this morning when 2 trucks and a car collided on Highway 103. The unidentified man driving the car was killed in the head-on collision involving this truck. The 2 vehicles were traveling in opposite directions. It was raining at the time. The roads were quite slippery.
Okay, the man was driving toward me. He just turned in front of me. I never had a prayer in hell to try it. Couldn't stop if I wanted to. He just drove right over him.
A second truck crashed into the wreckage but was only slightly damaged. The drivers of the trucks were not injured. No charges have been laid, but Chester RCMP are investigating.
Police won't know until later this week if charges will be laid against a boy accused of setting a cat on fire Halloween night. Sif the cat suffered third-degree burns to much of his body. His recovery has been painful, but the spirits of his owners have been kept up by donations from strangers, donations that will help pay Sif's medical costs. Tonight, Robin Smythe has this update on Sif's conditions. We warn viewers, this report deals with cruelty to animals. The video is quite graphic.
It's the first time Candy Crawley has been able to hold Sif since he was burned in a cruel Halloween prank.
Just like when you have a baby and you can't hold the baby for a couple of days, it just felt so good.
The torture has taken its toll on the year-old cat and on the Crawley family. Sif is badly burned, his Achilles tendons are injured, and his tail was removed to prevent gangrene from setting in.
Prognosis, I guess you could call it, guarded for a total recovery, and it's really hard to say right now whether he's going to recover totally or not.
The family says they did consider putting Sif to sleep, but by that time he was already getting better. Now Sif is walking, and all of Metro is watching his progress.
I'm a cat lover.
The veterinary hospital has been overwhelmed by donations, already collecting $1,000.
We were surprised. Like, we knew there was animal lovers out there, and we knew that there was support there, but the donations we just can't get over. It's nice. It really does help.
Meanwhile, the public outcry for something to be done about the cruelty is growing.
Dartmouth police have received several calls from people who want to see the two boys accused of torturing Sif prosecuted. One, an 11-year-old boy, is too young by law to be charged. The case of the other, a 13-year-old, is now in the hands of the Crown prosecutor, and a decision is expected by the end of the week on whether or not he'll proceed. In Dartmouth, Robin Smythe, MITV.
On the subject of animal rights, there won't be any more electrocution of dogs by the County Animal Control Office, at least for 1 year. The warden of Halifax County bowed to pressure from animal rights groups today and put a hold on electrocution as a method of destroying homeless dogs. The plan has satisfied some who have been pushing for a ban since MITV aired a story on dog electrocution in September. Michael Chisholm has details tonight.
The Dogs' Rights Association is claiming a small victory today. Representatives from the group came to this meeting hoping to get a full ban on electrocution. Instead, the county warden announced a plan has been worked out with Mountain Security to put a 1-year hold on animal electrocutions.
For 12 months, okay, there will be no electrocution of dogs. In the second and last year, third year actually, of the contract, whether there will be or there will not be, it will be worked out between Mountain Securities and the municipality, but it will have to be based on scientific evidence of is it a humane way or not.
Although it wasn't exactly the full ban the Dogs' Rights Association wanted, the group can live with the plan.
It's just wonderful. It's the first step, and everything has to begin somewhere, and I think that we'll find, hopefully in the long run, that there will be a complete end to it, and not just a temporary end to electrocution for the animals.
Under the new agreement with the county, Mountain Security will use veterinarians to put dogs down through injections. The Dogs' Rights Association says they've received many calls from people concerned about electrocution, and according to Rooney, no one supports the idea.
Oh, we've received a tremendous amount of mail, plus a tremendous amount of phone calls in regards to electrocution. And ever since it first went on MI television, that's just been, it's just one call after the other. And people.
About 12 homeless dogs a month are destroyed by the County Animal Control Center. Electrocution has only been used by the center for the past year. In Metro, Michael Chisholm, MITV.
Still ahead on NewsHour, more on the questions surrounding the death of Olympic gold medalist Victor Davis. And tonight, the Nova Scotia Nurses Union is backing out of the tentative deal its negotiators reached a week and a half ago.
Metro commuters were the first victims of a nationwide strike.
something wonderful.
2010. The year we make contact.
It is important that you believe me.
Alien Attack and 2010. A double feature that's out of this world. Tuesday on ASN, your movie station.
I always suspect there's something wrong with a man who doesn't drink or smoke.
Sunday at 8. Anne Bancroft and Mel Brooks.
Would you like to see my bomber?
To be or not to be.
I've always felt that true love should never stand in the way of a good time.
Sunday.
Perhaps you've outgrown your starter home and would like to get into something larger. Or perhaps your present dwelling is, well, a little on the old side and you want a newer home. Or perhaps you have a change of job and have to relocate. Whatever your real estate needs, get Canada's top producers working for you. The cream of the crop. They're at RE/MAX.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Time Life Music presents the greatest collection of Christmas songs ever assembled.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
Now, for the first time, Time Life Music brings you all these great stars together in one Christmas collection. 50 timeless classics on 3 records, 2 long-play cassettes, and now on 2 compact discs. To order, call the number on your screen. Only Time Life brings you Bing Crosby's White Christmas, the most popular recording of all time.